to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within.
Yeah, if you are deliberately trying to cause problems, that's exactly what you would be saying. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we will be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now. As, of course, we're going to be doing something different. We don't usually do shows at 1 p.m. Eastern, but it's election season. Everyone is going crazy. There's so much news happening right now. And then, of course, we had Jeremy Kaufman in Miami in a very rare situation. He was like, I really want to come on your show. And I'm like, yeah, let's just do the regular show that I do. That's usually canned. That's usually not live. Let's do it live, but let's do it with Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming down. I don't know what brought you to this beautiful, amazing free state of Florida. Hope you don't get too addicted to it and stay down here because the people of New Hampshire are not going to be really happy with you. But thank you so much for coming down. For the people who don't know you, who are you and how would you introduce yourself?
I'm Jeremy Kaufman. I'm a New Hampshire supremacist, but I do make compromises. I occasionally leave. Florida and New Hampshire, two freest states in the country. I'm down here for Hereticon, which is a private conference put on by Peter Thiel, and I'm a very online heretical person, and I think I just posted my way into the conference or something like this.
Nice. That sounds pretty interesting. I want to learn more about this. I had no idea this conference was even happening, which is pretty interesting. But we'll get into all of that. You had a crazy story with the FBI that recently just kind of went everywhere as well. It'll be interesting to get updates surrounding that. And, of course, there's also just so much news right now, specifically amongst the Libertarian, Trump-supporting, non-supporting kind of larger internal battles that are happening right now. So I think that would be very interesting to talk about as well. Robbie Mann, also joining us here in studio, the glorious orienter and presenter himself.
Super excited to be here, Jeremy. Man, saw that video of you. I'm looking forward to diving in on it this lovely afternoon. I want to know more about Hereticon, man. I don't know if we're allowed to come on down, but it sounds like a cool little conference. Is it the Illuminati?
It is, yeah. Everyone. There's like free adrenochrome.
Nice.
And I've had my blood replaced while I was down here.
Awesome. You had a blood boy. Who was the lucky blood boy?
You know, it just comes from this vat, so it's not really. It's all mixed up.
Nice. They just get a whole bunch of young people.
Is JD Vance there?
I can't say, actually. It's Chatham House rules, so if J.D. Vance was there, I'm not allowed to tell you unless he gives me permission.
Very interesting.
So, wow.
Peter Thiel loves his Chatham House rules for his larger events here. But we'll get into all of that as well. But truly, so many things are just moving so fast within our political sphere. It's just hard to even keep track of it all, as of course it seems like decades happen in a span of just one social media algorithm cycle on our news feeds. It really does seem like things are just kind of quickening. We're here at this last kind of finish line for what I've been calling the season finale of America. And during this larger kind of race, there's been a statement that as soon as it happened, Robbie saw it happen on social media. We were finishing up our show last night, and Robbie's like, holy crap, Joe Biden just called Trump supporters garbage. And I'm like, no way. Yep. That's exactly what happened here, as, of course, the AP has an article here. Biden suggests, no, he didn't suggest. He said, first of all, Associated Press, that Trump supporters are garbage after, of course, responding back to the insult by Tony Hinchcliffe that made a joke and wasn't as serious as a comment as Joe Biden. As now, a lot of people have a lot of questions about this particular statement. There's some people trying to obfuscate it. Some people think there's a conspiracy here. I have my own reasons to believe what's really going on here, but here's the clip in its entirety.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
Yeah, the Associated Press got it wrong there. You weren't suggesting, you were saying that they were garbage, as of course, after these comments, the predicted markets have gone absolutely haywire and are highlighting more of a potential Donald Trump victory, as a
Just
lot of
the other
people are
day-
now memeing his comments with these larger kind of betting markets that are highlighting overwhelmingly in the gambling markets that people do believe Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. What do you guys think of these latest comments? As of course, they're pretty hyperbolic. We just played a very kind of hyperbolic statement from Kamala Harris himself. It definitely does seem like the rhetoric is heating up. And how much crazier could it get?
I just want to say it's garbage can, not garbage can't.
Yes. There's a meme going around with Oscar the Grouch saying, with the MAGA hat on, making that same exact reference. And that's one way of approaching it.
I think Joe Biden secretly wants Trump to win.
I like this conspiracy theory. If maybe
With the
conspiracy
Trump
theory is the wrong word.
hat, and it just seems like he was done really dirty. I mean, they kicked him out. He's entitled to his second term. It's never happened in history before. You would think that maybe he's just trying to be sneaky and make this. He knows what happened when Hillary said the deplorables.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fascinating. This is sort of the thing that holds together the left is there are these comments made about Puerto Rico, and you can debate their accuracy, but it's anyone who doesn't believe that everyone is the same and equal, like that's who's trash. That's the core belief of the left.
Yes.
So they want to say that they're all about, acceptance and tolerance, but anyone who would suggest that differences exist between people or groups or these kinds of things, that's who's trash. That's the idea that can't be tolerated. And so, the way that all these comments over Puerto Rico, that's the way that this plays out.
The only thing they could pick out from the MSG rally was a roast comedian making comments about, he made fun of many different ethnicities and many different groups if you watch the whole thing, and all they could pick out from the whole thing, and they weren't talking about all the good things that happened there, all the Unity Party, all these amazing people coming together. All they could talk about was Tony Hinchcliffe making a comment about Puerto Rico when they do have a trash problem there.
Yeah, you don't see the Palestinians up in arms or up in rocks, like Tony Hinchcliffe would say during his stand-up at MSG, as of course his comments against them were pretty brutal as well as the larger situation in the Middle East. He didn't go light on anyone. And of course, we have to understand this was a totally different context to Joe Biden that, in all seriousness, called Trump supporters garbage. And I don't care how you try to obfuscate it. Tony Hinchcliffe was trying to make a joke. Joe Biden was making a very serious statement. Now, the motivation behind that statement we'll talk about in a little bit, but it does look like the Kamala Harris campaign is trying, according to Colin Rugg, try to manipulate some of the community notes that are on Twitter by now officially saying that no, he didn't mean it was Trump supporters. He was specifically just mentioning Tony Hinchcliffe and is that and they're literally people on social media right now just trying to obfuscate this, as it's pretty clear what he said. There's no lying about it. And the first thing that I thought when I heard this, I was like, Biden, old Yeller, is sabotaging Kamala Harris. I mean, there's no other way to see it from my conspiracy mind, because automatically with the way that I think, and I'm like, okay, these politicians, they're very calculated. They're very careful with exactly what they say. There's a lot of scripted notes that are given to reporters, and they're told to regurgitate those notes. There's a lot of things that is just essentially all theater behind the scenes. And you're telling me that this just kind of slipped out by accident? I don't believe that. I think there's something larger at play here. And I think this was a larger kind of sabotage effort by Joe Biden against Kamala Harris. And individuals like Vivek Ramaswamy agree with me, as of course he recently had this to say on Fox News regarding that very specific comment.
Look, here's the October surprise. It just arrived. This is the basket of deplorables moment. That's what Hillary Clinton said in 2016 that tanked her campaign. Well, that's the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris moment right now.
And Vivek Ramaswamy is saying the kind of Hillary Clinton deplorable comment, which also played a big role with galvanizing a lot of people saying, I'm deplorable? What? You're demeaning me? You're attacking me? You're thinking I'm beneath you? I'm deplorable? Yeah, I'll accept that kind of larger tag, and I'll wear it as a badge of honor. And that galvanized a lot of people to, of course, support Donald Trump in 2016. So let's keep going on with the clip.
I am a little bit more cynical about this one, Sean, in the following way. It might look like Joe Biden's usual cognitive deficits kicked in, But the reality is we know his family is secretly probably rooting for Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris, to win because they feel really vengeful about how they were treated. So if you're in their shoes, you know that kind of comment is actually going to tank Kamala Harris. So we're going to put those kinds of motivations to one side. But regardless, it is a welcome October surprise because let's take a big step back. What's going on here? The wheels are coming off the car. They're spiraling. And now you see the accusations of the other side being Hitler or piles of garbage. You're going to hear a lot about threats to democracy in the next week. They are flailing, Sean. They understand Americans are not falling for their trick anymore. Donald Trump has a record that he's running on. They're frustrated by it. And I think it's, in some ways, a beautiful thing for our side to watch this completely come undone and turn the page on this ugly chapter of our history.
Is this beautiful? No, I say it's dangerous. I say it's reckless. I say it's also going to, of course, bring a lot of mentally ill people on the brink of doing a lot of stupid stuff. To me, seeing this rhetoric from Biden and Kamala, I mean, Kamala's rhetoric that we just played in the beginning of this broadcast deserves to be commented on too. But I don't know about you, Jeremy, but it definitely does seem like there's kind of a deliberate effort, a deliberate push to try to scare the crap out of liberals and leftists about a future Donald Trump presidency.
I don't understand how it works, but it certainly does appear to work for some of these people on the left. I was in New Hampshire door knocking for a great guy in New Hampshire. His name's Keith Ammon. He's going to make New Hampshire the nuclear power capital of the world.
What is he running for?
He's just a state. He's a state rep, but he does some of the best libertarian stuff in New Hampshire, nuclear power, blockchain bills, this kind of thing.
What district?
He's a state rep. New Hampshire's 4 million state reps for a population of 1.4 million people, so it's like 4 state reps for every person.
Yeah, the Free State Project has their kind of local elections like really tuned in, and you guys do really great work when it comes to putting a lot of great people into local office.
Yeah. And Keith is one of the best. And I was knocking on the door of this totally liberal woman. She had that hate has no home, Harris Waltz signs, and I knock on her door, and I probably superficially look like a liberal, and so we're having this nice conversation.
The shirt gives it away.
And I wasn't wearing this one, but still. And we're having this nice conversation, and then I reveal the name of the candidate, and she just like recoils in horror. And she actually says, I can't vote for him. I just saw an ad. She literally credited an ad. She said this. I just saw an ad that told her that this guy was part of Trump's Project 2025.
Must be true.
And it's like it came through the television, and so therefore, that's true. And somehow, like what the television says, it has this grip on them to a degree that I don't really understand. I've seen it with my parents as well. They just kind of tend to believe what the TV tells them.
I think that's the biggest thing this cycle. I think that's pretty much what the Kamala campaign is doing. They're preying on people who really don't have time to do their own research, preying on people who are just kind of watching TV and believing what they're told. They're doing a lot of lies. If you go on Twitter, if you go on the Kamala headquarters, it's all like propaganda.
Yeah. How does it, to me, it makes sense to start out believing these things, but there's so many things that they've clearly been wrong about. So how do you not update at some point on this stuff? Like I love my parents. This is another equivalent story to this. I was having this conversation with my parents about how Florida hates gay people. Right? They have this like don't say gay bill, and I was like, oh, like how does Florida hate gay people? Like what specifically? And they can't actually articulate specifically what Florida has done to hate, but they know that it's true. So like there's this simultaneous like superficial understanding of Trump is a fascist, Florida hates gays, whatever, but there's no underlying, like it's not based on anything. It's just been like repeated enough.
Exactly.
And it becomes true without any understanding of why it's true.
When you hear things enough times, my friend the other day was like, Trump's going to repeal the Constitution. I was like, the media's been telling him this. I'm like, no, dude, that's not true. He can't do that.
Yeah, he's working with Elon Musk with people literally pledging to uphold the Constitution and giving out $1 million to people who signed the petition that promised to, of course, protect the Bill of Rights, which he's getting sued by the Philadelphia DA because of, which is another kind of interesting development here. But no, I really do think the language that's being spoken right now by the Kamala Harris campaign, by the corporate media, all in unison saying the same thing. Trump, 1930s funny mustache guy. Trump, he's going to lead us into fascism. Trump, he's going to destroy the Constitution. And I'm like, were you around for his first term? Like it wasn't, the Reichstag burning down. All right, it wasn't the Enabling Act. That was called the George W. Bush years. I don't know if you guys remember those years, but that's a lot more of a favorable comparison to, of course, that funny mustache guy in the 1930s, especially when it came to eviscerating and destroying the American Constitution, our civil liberties, and any kind of semblance of privacy that we previously had before, which we don't anymore. But hey, that could be one reason why Joe Biden, because again, a lot of people are now speculating, why is he saying this now? We're at the last inning. The game's about to be over. It's about to be decided. And now Joe Biden kind of gives a slam dunk to the right. Some people are saying it's because he's old. A lot of people are saying, hey, there's a lot of bad blood between him and Kamala. He must know something that we might not know. It could be personal. It could be even bigger than that. And he deliberately sabotaged her. As CNN has this article saying Biden may have handed Trump a big assist with his garbage gaffe. Now, Kamala Harris's response to this is also very telling. We're going to play it right now.
He's going to bring us together, and that's the type of leader I intend to be.
Have you spoken to President Biden since his comment last night about garbage?
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Have you spoken to him about his comments and his intentions?
He did call me last night, but this didn't come up.
Are you concerned about what impact this may have on voters, on the divisiveness of the election, and whether or not it's going to dissuade some people from supporting you because of your affiliation with the president and this administration?
I've been very clear with the American public. I respect the challenges that people face. I respect the fact that we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and that most people want a president that understands that gets that, and approaches their role of leadership that way. I've been very clear from my earliest years as a prosecutor. I never asked anyone, are they a Democrat or Republican? The only thing I ask folks is, are you okay? And that's the kind of president I will be.
And what did you talk about with the president?
Madam Vice President, on a separate subject, last night you mentioned removing people in the country who are here illegally. What do you mean?
A lot of people are kind of shocked, and in the comment section are saying, she took questions? She actually did. And you could see she's kind of not very happy about Joe Biden's statement.
That's how you know she's desperate, if she's taking questions.
Yes, absolutely. As, of course, that's not what she did before. She hid away from the press until those poll numbers started to go down. And then when they went down, all hell just broke loose. Now, according to Frank Lutz, things started to go down when Kamala started to attack Donald Trump. I don't think that's the case. I think she's been attacking Donald Trump from day one. I think things started to go down the longer this campaign went, and the longer there really wasn't any kind of larger substance with Kamala Harris. People were like, what are your policies? What are you going to do? And she just kept saying, I'm from a middle-class family. And the majority of people are like, okay, what are the policies? What are you going to do for us? And then she just keeps repeating that same line, just like she did yesterday. And that's not a lot of substance for the average American out there who's struggling, who's not doing good, and, of course, is dealing with more and more larger financial and economic troubles. So big development here. CNN even admits, hey, this does significant harm here, and this will be playing in the hearts and minds of a lot of people that are now using it as a larger rallying call. What do you guys think of Kamala Harris' reaction to all of this and how this will play out?
I think it's not necessarily Biden sabotaging Kamala. I think this is how a lot of leftists genuinely feel about Trump supporters. So it's possible that Biden's playing fifth dimensional chess or whatever, but I'm not sure he can play like two-dimensional chess at this point. So
I'm not sure he could walk.
So I think a lot of people really do feel this way, and even in terms of the fascist stuff, like in the same way that libertarians like to call even Republicans, socialists and this kind of thing. Like in my view, like 90% of Americans are socialists
and statists, and communists, in my opinion, too.
And so I think there is a phenomenon where if you get far left enough, that even very normal opinions feel fascist to you. That is how you experience them, because you want everything to be like lowest common denominator. Everything is permissible. Everything is allowed. So the idea that, we shouldn't have drug addicts in a park, or we should, in fact, consider whether it's a good idea to let a rapist into our country feels like fascism, because it's a judgment. And so the far leftism is like everything is the same, no judgment of anything. And so someone suggesting that any kind of judgment exists, even what would be like we all basically agree that this judgment should exist, feels to a certain contingent of the population like, quote, fascism.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of TDS going on as well. I think from years of just saying Trump is a threat to our democracy, I think you're programming these people. They're not showing the youth. They're not showing like the Tulsi Gabbards and the Elon. Their news isn't going, oh, guys, this is a unity party. They want to make America healthy again. They're not saying any of the positives. It's just Trump is a threat to our democracy. And I think the average person doesn't have the time to go and find independent journalism to find the real truth. And when you see Kamala on like The View going like, what's the difference between you and Joe Biden? Nothing. I mean, it's just like those type of answers. It's like, it's not really motivating you to want to vote for her if you have a brain.
No, absolutely. As of course, a lot of these elections now are just larger ploys for emotional manipulation. And we kind of saw that with Tony Hinchcliffe's larger kind of joke that I think was just absolutely hyperbolically sensationalized by the corporate media that was clutching their pearls. How dare a comedian make a joke about Puerto Rico? And now, even according to pollsters, that joke actually didn't cause any change of opinions amongst Hispanics when it comes to, of course, their support of Donald Trump. But I do see the corporate media as a very kind of desperate entity, and I think this is why they are trying to hype up jokes from comedians as something that is a bad sign of things to come under Donald Trump. That's ridiculous, okay? That's absolutely insane. It was a joke from a comedian. Sure, it didn't land. Sure, it offended some people, but I like jokes that offend people. I prefer jokes that offend people rather than jokes that are absolutely not funny by all these woke comedians that are too afraid to even talk about the larger issues in our society because they'll be canceled if they joke about it a little bit too much here. So I think we're seeing something completely different. But Jeremy, you brought up a good point. Maybe this is not fifth generational warfare. Maybe it's just Biden saying the quiet part out loud, because a lot of these people do have disdain. They have weaponized the DOJ. They have weaponized all these regulatory bodies to go after their larger political opponents. You have been gone after by the FBI, the SEC. You have dealt with some serious pressures yourself, especially creating your online video platform. And you have, the stories to back it up. I kind of want to ask you in a little bit what you think might happen to Donald Trump, or more specifically, what's going to happen to Elon Musk under a Kamala Harris presidency. But the point that I really want to bring home is these people, they don't like you because of your political beliefs, because of your lifestyles. They don't like you having families. They don't like you being religious. And it really does seem like, it just kind of slipped out as well. And that's how a lot of central controllers, a lot of bureaucrats, a lot of Democrats really do think generally just about MAGA supporters and Donald Trump people.
Yeah. So I think one of the most, and I can talk about the persecution that I've faced or whatever. I think one of the greatest example of this that's played out over the last 5 years was the stuff around Haiti. Like, if there's a country that we ought to be able to judge, it's Haiti. Like, you can't really look at Haiti in any way and say that this is a country that like anyone wants to emulate. Haiti controls itself. Like, Haitians have to deserve some blame, for these outcomes. And when there's an acknowledgement that Haiti is a country where no one can make any money and it's full of trash, all the celebrities put on hats and shirts saying like Haiti is great already. And so we have to simultaneously believe that there's like this superposition of two beliefs that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. But then if there's absolutely nothing wrong with Haiti, why do so many of these people, need to or want to come here? And I think a lot of people who can see reality, like the reason that the comments about Puerto Rico don't bother Puerto Ricans is these are the Puerto Ricans who left Puerto Rico. And they left Puerto Rico for a reason, because they find America and Florida and other places around the world to be preferable to them to Puerto Rico. And so acknowledging that Puerto Rico has problems is actually not going to be trouble for Puerto Ricans. It's trouble for this class of white liberals that doesn't want to believe that there can be differences between countries and people.
No, absolutely. You brought up a very kind of important point that is worth considering, especially with what we've seen also happen in North Carolina, especially what we have seen with the DOJ, especially what we have seen with a lot of pro-life activists, a lot of people like Steve Bannon, a lot of people like Roger Stone, a lot of people like Donald Trump that have had many very serious charges put up against them. Steve Bannon just got out of jail. So under a Kamala Harris presidency, I think we will see a larger kind of weaponization of the state against a lot of the people that have stood in her way now. I think Biden might even get potentially hit too with some charges, and the situation doesn't look too good for Hunter Biden as well, as there's a lot of heat right now on Joe Biden. But, you went through the gauntlet. I don't know if you want to speak to that just a little bit. And then I kind of wanted to get your perspectives on how it's going to play out in the future.
Yeah, so I faced a bunch of legal challenges when I was platforming and keeping some content online that the United States government did not want online. And I think there probably are enough people inside of the government who are aware of my activities, opinions generally, that they're happy to target me. So I also had the FBI visit my house for over unspecified, tweeting, just kind of a shakedown type of visit. The scariest thing to me is that it's not clear to me that it actually is directed. Like, I don't think that there's a small group of powerful leftists who called up the FBI. I think what's actually happened, and I actually think this is scarier than there being a small group, because if there's a small group, you can change that group and you can eliminate it. I think that there's this complex of incentives that's been created between journalists, powerful institutions, both inside and outside of the government, where they're simply rewarded for this behavior. Like even Trump being prosecuted in New York, I don't know that that's directed so much as a district attorney has the ability to do this, and the sort of leftist authoritarian power structure rewards individuals who perform this way. You're going to get flattering articles about you from all these journalist outfits. You're going to have prominent leftist individuals backing you up when you do these things. And so it actually ends up being sort of more of an emergent and unplanned. I mean, individuals are planning things, but it's not as directed, in my opinion, as it might seem. And I'm not saying that there aren't phone calls being made or nudges happening. I'm not saying that kind of thing doesn't happen. But the scariest thing to me is that there might not actually be anyone in charge of this power structure, right? We all can tell that Biden's not in charge. We all know that Kamala won't be in charge if she wins. But it's not clear to me that anyone is in charge. People will point out Soros or various individuals as having extra influence. I do agree that they're individuals with outsized influence, but I actually think it's this sort of incentive structure that's been created that feels somewhat headless. And that's scarier, by the way, to me. That's scarier, because if there's a head, you can chop it off. If there's not a head, it's harder to stop.
Yeah, and I think the kind of takeover of the institutions highlights a larger credibility for the argument that you're making here, because if you go to a lot of these top universities, a lot of these people are thought, hey, these people are crazy, they're bad, they need to be stopped, they're a threat against democracy. And then having the corporate media regurgitate that has these people living in kind of this delusional, hyper-paranoid fear state where they actually do see free speech as a threat against democracy, which is absolutely an insane statement, and it's absolutely nonsensical. But if a lie is big enough and you keep repeating it, it does seem to integrate into a lot of these people. And the way that they are kind of brought up in these larger systems and these larger institutions does create a lot of these really kind of paranoid, angry individuals that do see you as an enemy of the state because you dare to express political opinions. Which is,
and they've pushed out, as you were saying, that there's been this sort of evaporative effect where whoever was the farthest away from leftist authoritarianism has been continuing to bubble off and get pushed out of these institutions to the point that, at prominent universities, it's 90 to 95%, center left or leftists, no one on the right. Same at the big tech companies and so on. Now, the big countervailing force now is we have Elon. Elon went all the way. He didn't just dip his toe in. He went all the way. He's staking his entire reputation on the fact that, hey, if there needs to be space for... I don't even believe that Elon is as right-wing as he's presenting. I think he sees there as being this necessity for right-wing opinions, and he's chosen to go very far out there. And I've seen this. I've talked to Silicon Valley founders, people that are nowhere near as big as Elon, but these guys might employ 100 people or something like that. And they've specifically said, if Elon hadn't done this, I wouldn't have been able to come out and talk openly about these things. And so one person who's very prominent standing up and being all the way out there has created space for all of these other people. And it's sort of now we're finally seeing a countervailing force to this leftist authoritarian incentive power structure thing.
Yeah, we're seeing a kind of balancing act being played out here. And Elon Musk, historically in the past was very liberal, very leftist. He still is in a way, especially when it comes to, all the carbon credits he gets for his Tesla cars and all the other kind of large government contracts that he gets as well here. But what you mentioned here, I think is also crucial to understand here, because if it wasn't for Elon, we would be in absolute major trouble as a country. And having this counterbalance is absolutely critically important, because if the balance shifts, it becomes extremely dangerous for the party that's not in power. It becomes extremely dangerous for the kind of minority in this larger kind of political institutions. And the left very brilliantly, slowly and surely took over the cultural institutions and then the political institutions. And the way that they're able to wield power covertly through psychological warfare as well, I would even argue mind control in many different ways, but subliminally as well, has been extremely effective at pushing through their larger kind of Marxist, cultural, communistic agenda out there that is slowly encompassing our lives without our kind of acquiescence, without our kind of consent. So it's like a slow burn. It's like we're in this pot and we're finally seeing the bubbles rise up to the top, and I'm like, holy cow, it's getting hot here. And I think Elon Musk has very representatively kind of toned down the temperature a little bit. And I think what we're seeing right now from the corporate media is they're trying to rise that temperature as high as they can, especially with their very kind of aggressive language and rhetoric towards Donald Trump supporters today.
I think Elon is like many of us. I think he's like a classical liberal. I think that, the sides have flipped. And when I was a kid, the Republican Party was pro-war, was pro-censorship. Now I feel like it's completely flipped. And you see this unity party come in, where I don't consider Trump a hardcore Republican. He's more of like would you consider a centrist, And you see this happening, and you just see like people. I voted for Obama. I campaigned for Obama. Now I'm like, okay, well, I'm anti-war. I'm anti-censorship, and I feel like a lot of those people are coming over like Elon to the other side.
Yeah, well, there's that classic Dune quote, like, when I'm weaker than you, I appeal to free speech. Well, it's not free speech, but it's whatever. When I'm weaker than you, I appeal to free speech because it's in my interest. When I'm in power, when I'm more powerful than you, I'm screwing up the quote. But there's this. I think it flips. Like honestly, if the Republicans had power over the same degree of institutions that the Democrats did, I think the Democrats would be the party of free speech again. And I think the Republicans would use their institutional power to not be as good on free speech. And I'm not trying to drag Trump. So I'm clearly voting for Trump. But Trump's talking about let's jail people for burning the American flag and so on. Like, he clearly does have some of these impulses, but because the right is out of power, they're on the side of free speech, at least currently. So I wouldn't expect that to last over time. If you're someone who does care about free speech and the competition of ideas, my guess is that the minority party, the minority faction, is going to be the party that's more likely to support those things.
Yeah, I think Zach Levi, I don't know if you saw the video, the actor, pretty big actor, I'm voting for Robert Kennedy. I'm voting for having Elon. I'm voting for having Vivek. I'm voting for having Bobby. Like, this is like unprecedented. I've never seen a Republican candidate have all these people, amazing people around him. I think Trump learned the first time having these neocons, these people around him, even though I don't agree with him with the Mike Pompeo thing. I don't, hopefully, Bobby and him have a disagreement there. And I stand with Bobby on that. I don't think we should have these neocons in there. I think we should clear it out, drain the swamp is I think the proper thing to do. He didn't do it the first time. Hopefully he does it this time.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, the right has had a sort of human capital problem, and hopefully that some of the tech people, the Elon people, the Vivek people, even Vance, I think, bring a lot of high ability, and I'm hoping that we can see a much better administration because of this.
I was going to ask you, because, supporting Donald Trump has been something that the libertarians have always have this kind of larger internal conflict about. Can you tell us about your kind of... So you are supporting Donald Trump. You will be voting for Donald Trump. Is that correct?
I will be voting for Donald Trump, although I actually voted for Donald Trump in 2020 as well. And that's because I'm not interested in support. And it was specifically over Joe Jorgensen, Black Lives Matter, anti-racism stuff. Like, to me, and this to me is this idea that libertarians are separate from left and right is entirely false. You can look at the fights inside of the libertarian movement going back the entire existence of it, going back 5 decades or 6 decades, and almost all of the fights map onto what's effectively a left-right dichotomy. And so left-right, as I see it, is fundamentally about how egalitarian you are versus how comfortable are you with differences between people, as well as what's your moral orientation of concern. The more right-wing you get, the more you say my orientation of concern is local. I care about my family, my community. I don't care what happens in China. I don't care what happens in places around the world. And the more left-wing you get, you're like, well, bacteria is alive too. So, should we really be, all life matters and this kind of thing. And I think these factors are very real in us. And I'm not going to back libertarians who want to advance leftism, And so the whole all of BLM, all of the woke stuff is clearly on the left. And if a libertarian is going to try to advance libertarianism from the left, I'm just not interested.
Yeah. It's cultural Marxism, which is exactly what it is. It's a larger ploy against the family unit, against religion. Black Lives Matter even openly declared it on their own website until they got criticized of it, and then they deleted it there. But it was very kind of indicative to kind of see this kind of internal pressure that started cracking under kind of BLM. Because usually, there was a couple libertarians, we're all kind of hanging out here, but I think the division within the party really did start under BLM. You're more in tune with this kind of a libertarian party, with the Free State Project, with everything that's happening up in New Hampshire. So just also for pure transparency, you voted for Trump in 2020. I voted for Trump in 2016.
I did. I voted for Johnson in 2016, it changed me. If you asked me in a decade ago, I probably would have told you like libertarians are neither left nor right. I would have been someone who was saying that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What about these people that are voting?
I saw Hillary Clinton, and I knew how absolutely horrible Hillary Clinton was and the larger possibility of her presidency, and I was like, there's no way. And I saw Donald Trump literally talk about investigating the events in New York City after 2001. I saw him point the finger at the Bushes, at the Saudis. I saw him talking about auditing and ending the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system in 2016, and I'm like, that's why I'm voting for him. 2020, I voted for him as well. It was a little bit more difficult, but I saw the options. Biden essentially means a destruction of our economy, or Donald Trump, a continuation of these larger kind of health policies that I really wasn't in line with. But at least there was kind of institutional pushback against it by the leftists that really didn't like it until Biden came in. Then they told everyone that they needed to take it or else they'll end up discriminated against. This year, I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump as well. But what has been your mindset? Because I think it's important to kind of break through the thought process, the kind of considerations here. What was the moment that in this election cycle that made you go, yeah, that's the reason I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump?
Well, it was that the Libertarian Party nominated the most left-wing libertarian possible. I mean, this is a guy who can't talk about gun rights without saying it's for trans people and black people. Like, every single thing he approaches is through this leftist lens. He believes every left-wing hoax. He still believes, Matthew Shepard was killed because he was gay. He will support absolutely horrible murderers and say that they're innocent when the evidence is very clear that they're guilty. And this is that sort of that he is the kind of attitude. He wants to drag everything down in the dirt. He doesn't celebrate human accomplishment, humans building things, humans achieving things. And that is what attracted me to libertarianism, is this idea that unleashing human ability, free markets allow humans to be innovative and invent things. And I like the idea of human progress. I think it's awesome that we're having this conversation over the internet out of this kind of studio, and this involved an incredible amount of people working together under free markets to invent all of these things. And you're competing in the free market here. The free market, there's a free market for influence and for who is getting listened to. And I think these kinds of things allow the best to rise to the top. That's always what attracted me to the ideas of liberty and libertarianism. But obviously there's also this class of libertarian that's like, well, I want to be a libertarian so that, people can do heroin and I can be a prostitute and these kinds of things. And like, I'm not, I do kind of still accept the libertarian arguments about like you own yourself and you get to make your own choices. But I think that a lot of these choices are terrible choices. I'm not interested in saying, sex work is real work or any of this stuff. It's terrible stuff. And the memes there they're bad. They're unhealthy. It doesn't mean I necessarily want to have an authoritarian government controlling these things, but this idea that they're supposed to be celebrated, I think, is really sick. And it's clear that there are some libertarians who, go down that path, and that's what attracts them to liberty. They think it allows them to live very libertine, permissive lives, and that's not, my intent at all.
Yeah.
We had a guy last night who called in and he was like, I'm voting for Chase. So, like, what do you tell these people? Because, you hear the discussion with Rogan and Trump. Trump's like, I want to abolish the income tax. That's pretty libertarian.
Look, there's plenty of libertarian criticisms of Trump that would be wholly correct. I've made them, okay? The point is, if you're going to back the libertarian, it has to be someone that you want to be growing the libertarian movement in a way that you want. And Chase Oliver brings the worst kind of libertarian into the Libertarian Party. The type of person that, that finds him appealing is generally the worst kind of libertarian. And so if you're going to vote, I generally think that third parties are kind of worthless. I'm more in the Libertarian Party because I care about the word libertarian, and the Libertarian Party has outsized influence on how this word is conceived of, and I don't want to give up on that word because I think it's still the best word to describe what I fundamentally believe. But if you're going to believe in third parties in the abstract, your third party candidate is the guy who is out there growing your coalition. So who he's recruiting and who he's appealing to is very important. And so if you're going to back a third party candidate, you have to say that this is the kind of person who is bringing the right kind of person into my movement and into my group, right? Politics is about more than policy. Politics is about culture and all of these other aspects of the person themselves. I mean, this is actually why I find Trump appealing, because even though I think Trump can be bad policy-wise, directionally in terms of, like, Trump is actually someone who does appreciate excellence. He does appreciate achievement. So even if I disagree with him on policy, he's culturally bringing the country in a good direction. Same thing with Elon and Vivek and all of these people, right? Elon is offering people this transcendent vision of let's get to Mars, let's achieve impressive things. And this is, I think, so much more healthier than the kind of versus a Chase Oliver who's saying, well, let's just be more permissive and let's be non-judgmental and let's talk about how sex work is work and murderers aren't such bad people. And like, this is, I find it just so disgusting and so reprehensible. And anyone who finds this kind of approach compelling, I don't want them wearing the word libertarian.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do say that I don't think we've ever had people. I just saw a tweet from Elon saying he wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve. When you hear this dialogue and you hear the income tax thing, we've never seen that in any major political party before. So I think you got to be crazy not to at least give it a chance. And the other side is just complete establishment. They've been in office 12 of the last 16 years. What have they done? I mean, I think you have to realize this is a special time to vote for the Trump administration.
And I think what Angela McArdle has done, and some others have done with the Libertarian Party, is the best thing that you possibly can do. If you're perceived of as this 3 to 5% block that can be the deciding factor, then you get pandered to a lot. And I see this happen in New Hampshire. Free staters get pandered to by the Republicans to make, because we mostly vote Republican, and I'll be voting straight Republican this November. But certainly if the Republican is bad enough, we won't always support them. But that actually means you get more, because the person who's always going to vote Republican doesn't need to be pandered to. Whereas the group that will maybe vote Republican actually can get pandered to quite a lot. And so if the Libertarians can position themselves via the Libertarian Party as being this block that can be panderable to, that can be this deciding force, then you'll see more of our ideas getting picked up, because the politicians will see us as the potential deciding factor in the election.
Yeah, I think the Libertarians will be deciding the 2024 election, and Donald Trump understands that. And from private conversations that I know he has had, he has been telling people, I need the Libertarian vote if I'm going to win this. Donald Trump understands this. Some people say he's kind of pandering, but he's also just giving us, I think, more attention than the Libertarian Party has ever had. I think the Libertarian Party hasn't been as important as it is now, and there are different factions of it, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think overwhelmingly Libertarians this year will be voting for Donald J. Trump. Do you think that's an accurate statement or no?
I think that's 100% correct. I think that I think Chase is going to get under 1% of the vote, and in any kind of exit poll of Libertarians, I would bet that it's going to be 70+% for Trump.
Yeah.
And New Hampshire's a swing state now.
New Hampshire is a swing state, and we see this here. So, like, we've done this strategy in New Hampshire. There's actually the woman running for governor this year in New Hampshire, Kelly Ayotte. She's not the most libertarian, but she will help the libertarian agenda get through if she's elected, and I'm going to be voting for her. And 8 years ago, she actually lost a very close election for Senate due to a libertarian challenger. And she has gone out of her way to court the libertarians. She went out of her way to be nice to me. She put another Free Stater in one of her commercials. The whole commercial is this Free Stater named Brittany Ping. She's a Moms for Liberty woman in New Hampshire. And the Democrat had a press conference about how Kelly Ayotte is welcoming far-right libertarian extremists to New Hampshire, and Kelly Ayotte tripled the ad buy in response to this press conference that was held by the Democratic governor candidate. And so, they know that they can't win without us, and they need to make sure that we're on their side, or they're not going to win. And there's a lot of power that comes from that.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. When I saw that, I was like, New Hampshire usually goes blue.
Yeah, we'll see. So New Hampshire has the highest portion of genuine independents. So genuine independents are people who actually split their tickets. Like, a lot of independents just vote Democrat or vote Republican. Like New Hampshire did go blue for president in 2020 while electing a Republican governor with 70% of the vote and electing a Republican, entirely Republican state government. So Republicans control all the branches of the state government in New Hampshire, and they still voted for Biden. And Trump is still sort of uniquely disliked among some of this independent class in New Hampshire. I think they see him as mean or cruel or disruptive. I'm not saying this is accurate. I'm just saying that's how they see him. And I do wonder. I think New Hampshire will probably be a toss-up this year for president, but I think we will have a Republican state government up and down.
Even with Bobby coming in, making America healthy again. I mean, I feel like, when he brings these ex-Democrats in, doesn't that kind of maybe make these people...
Look, I would love to be like New Hampshire's going red no matter what. My read of the data is that it's going to be kind of genuinely close. I would love New Hampshire to go red. We would be the only red state in the Northeast. And again, this is what's so positive, is when you have this positive selection effect, then everything can continue to accelerate. And so if we're continuing to drain people from nearby states into New Hampshire, then New Hampshire gets better, nearby states get worse, and that whole thing continues to accelerate.
Yeah, you guys are surrounded by a lot of massholes and a lot of really bad people out there from New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut and Maine. It's like, man, I mean, I lived up there, and I genuinely think the Free State people are some of the greatest people on earth. I really like them. There's obviously a lot of infighting, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of insanity, but I think the people of New Hampshire, just generally speaking, are very awesome people, whether they're a part of the Free State Project or not. I really like that kind of, gritty, rugged, nature-loving individuals that are just kind of living out there in the wild, and that's a perfect representation of New Hampshire, the live free or die state.
Yeah, and I wouldn't dispute that there are a lot of bad politics in the Northeast, but there's still a lot of good people in each of those states, and so good people from Massachusetts are the ones moving to New Hampshire, and good people from New York are the ones moving to New Hampshire. New Hampshire is just this last year was one of 2 states to have a net migration rate of over 2% of people with children. The only other state was Idaho. And I can tell you, people with families vote Republican far more than they vote Democrat. And so we're seeing this kind of positive selection effect where people are saying, I don't want to raise my kids in Massachusetts, I don't want to raise my kids in New York, and I do want to raise them in New Hampshire. And so the more that kind of thing, I think we're having a really nice dynamic where it's actually good people who are moving into New Hampshire. I would actually somewhat dispute. I know there's this narrative it's turning into Massachusetts. I think it's the opposite. I actually think we're getting good people from Massachusetts.
That's incredible. I really wanted to go back to, I think a lot of people want to know about when that famous video online where these guys came to your house. Did you have any idea that you might be approached by any federal agents, or were you caught off guard? Like what?
There had been some discussion in various group chats about whether we were pushing things too far, and but my neighbor actually gave me a heads up that they were outside, so that was why I was able to have my camera out, sort of as they were walking up, because my neighbor said he's one of those guys who's like always watching out, and he has like cameras on his computer and everything, and he told me that they were outside, so I was able to get out there and be ready, so I had 30 seconds or a minute of preparation.
Are there any updates surrounding that particular case? Have they tried to contact you again? And are there any kind of legal repercussions that you're facing?
No, I mean, as I called them out in the video, I'm very aware of my First Amendment rights, and they couldn't even state why they were there. So they knew that they were there, just to perform, a kind of
intimidation,
a kind of shakedown. Yeah, it was just perform intimidation. I'm not the kind of person who is intimidated. I'm the kind of person who is only emboldened. I would suspect that should they come to my house again, they'll send someone better. They probably have there's like a note in their file now, that last one.
I mean, in Europe, they're doing this all the time, and that's why America's one of the last places that we're supposed to be protected from this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is, I think it's scary, the direction that America is going in. I see the beliefs that I have as being substantially minority beliefs, and I think that, there's a certain type of person. America originally selected for this certain type of person. It was, you had to be rugged, you had to be an individual, you had to want to leave your country to build something new at a time when that was very costly. And now it's very easy to get here, and the selection effects for who's coming here, I think, is generally making America a worse country politically. This isn't. I am for some forms of immigration, but I think that we need to be selecting for people who make America more American, not less American. And I believe there are people with American, that kind of American impulse. I believe they exist all over the world, not at equal rates, but I believe they existed all over the world. And if we had better mechanisms for making sure that we were getting people to make America more American, that'd be awesome. Instead, we're seeing the Democrats massively import people, funding them to come here, and these are people who are making America less American. I mean, I think when you put 20,000 Haitians into a town of 60,000, I think you've destroyed that town more permanently than dropping an atomic bomb on it. Okay,
absolutely.
This is we have to have these kinds of uncomfortable conversations. It might be uncomfortable to have this conversation, but we need to debate it in reality. Is that a true statement or is that a false statement? We can't just react emotionally to that.
That sounds like a racist bigot argument there, Jeremy. How dare you try to have a logical, sensical argument that's not based off hyperbolic emotions?
And what's funny? There's a Haitian Free Stater who moved here from Haiti. He's like, I agree with you completely. So he doesn't have any problem.
The most uncomfortable conversations are the most important conversations, and I think this is why comedians are under attack, and that and why there's been a massive effort to try to cancel them, to try to destroy them, to try to ruin them. The larger attacks that we have seen throughout the years on Dave Chappelle, on Joe Rogan, and all these other luminaries that have always happened against these gestures in our society that are able to, of course, help us deal with the larger problems of society. The establishment really hates them more than anyone else in our society, because they're able to, of course, address these issues in such an honest, truthful way where it really kind of strikes at the root of the issues. And this is why I think free speech is the number one enemy of tyrants and liars, and why, if Kamala Harris gets elected as president of the United States, why she probably will be going after that the first thing, a part of her larger kind of executive power grab when it comes to reining in social media companies. I wanted to ask you, how do you think the Kamala Harris presidency, if she is elected, will play out? As of course you dealt with a lot of legal lawfare yourself. What do you expect for individuals like Elon Musk, as Donald Trump is soon to be sentenced as well? He still has a sentencing. A lot of people forgot about that. He could be the first president ever behind bars. Could happen with how crazy the world is. But Jeremy, I wanted to ask you what your kind of experience. How would you see an America under Kamala Harris under her reign?
Yeah, so it's certainly not going to be good. I think it could kind of go either way. Well, it could be very bad, or it could be like moderately bad, and it's tough to see which of those it would be. I think, sort of, so goes Elon, so goes America. You can already see there is this faction of bureaucrats who are going after Elon, challenging him over civil rights violations, challenging him over you can't launch your rockets because like 7 turtles might die. He's started talking about some of this stuff, and I think anyone in business has experienced it. Trump had a great segment on Rogan talking about how the environmental regulations have inhibited him, from building buildings and building things, and this is what's caused, this. It's both cultural, but it's also regulatory. I think it's substantially regulatory. Like there's a lot of rot, and it's become so hard to do anything, to build anything, to achieve anything. Even in New Hampshire, as much as I like to talk about it, I saw this new building go up, 80-unit apartment building. They built the building in 1 year. It took them 6 years to get government approval to build the building. So they owned the lot for 7 years, 6 years of waiting, 1 year of building to get an 80-unit apartment building up. And this is everything. This is America could be a leader in every industry. We have the smartest people here. We have very able people here. And what's holding us back is our own government. And I think if Kamala is elected, that absolutely gets worse. I think it potentially gets way worse, because it's not clear if it can't happen now. If Trump can't win this election with all this being clear, like what's the comeback path for America at large? I mean, America, the debt, the trajectory of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of the entitlements, it's completely unsustainable. And there's no desire to fix it on the left other than to do more of what's making things not work. Let's raise taxes more on people who do anything, to give more to people who don't do anything. And your country will eventually collapse. We're seeing democracy generally, right? Democracy, I think it's plausible that it was better than what came before, but we're now seeing the flaws. Like every system, if it doesn't evolve, eventually cracks. And we're seeing this happen not just in America, but in Europe, where you can pull up a graph of what % of the economy was controlled by the government. And in the last 120 years, every democratic nation has gone from like 5% to 50%. Every democratic nation in the world. And there's no track record of a democracy ever recovering from this kind of thing. And so if all of this just continues, where does it go? It will crack under its own weight eventually. And if people can't see it now, I'm kind of skeptical that they're going to see it in the future.
Yeah, it does definitely seem like there's a lot at stake here during this election, not just the political parties, but more specifically the economy, the future of free speech, the future of a lot of individuals that have taken sides here that sadly will have the brunt of government going after them, trying to take them down because they were on the wrong side of the political party alignment. And it definitely does seem like if the Democrats get in power, they're going to codify their positions of power forever. Which leads me to a question that we were asked yesterday from one of our super chatters. What are you going to do if Kamala Harris wins? Are you going to leave the country? What's the kind of move to make here?
You got to get to good states, whether that's Florida, New Hampshire. There's maybe a short list beyond that. It's one of the things I've learned about recently is that even in the worst dark ages of Europe, and the dark ages can be a bit overstated, but there are clearly some bad eras for Europe. Even in the worst times, life in the best city-states in Europe was still very good, often better than your life would have been when the Roman Empire was a coherent empire, the life in the good city-state. And so, America collapsing doesn't mean the ideals of America collapse. It most likely means that you retreat to some kind of citadel. And the more the American government pursues this unsustainable path, the more incentive there is to be the first state out the door, right? So the first state, if everything continues to be financially and economically unsustainable, the first state to leave actually gets an outsized reward. And so if things don't change, I don't see how America stays together over the long term or even the medium term.
Do you think we can get the liberals to? Do you think Trump can? When he's talking about eliminating the income tax, I think that can get everyone on board. Do you think there's a path to that with the tariffs?
I'm somewhat skeptical that one plays out. I mean, I don't know what the exact math on how high tariffs have to be to replace the income tax. My guess is it's actually difficult to predict because the tariff would be so high that you can't even estimate. Like if a tariff goes from like 10% to 100%, you can't. It's difficult to calculate how that changes because you're going to get less of the goods in the first place, right? That whole like Laffer curve effect or whatever it's called. And so, I if you told me could I press a button and somehow all of our taxes were tariffs instead of income tax, like I would take that deal. I think that is. I like it directionally, so I hate to be the guy who's like popping the bubble of reality on that. I think it's probably not going to happen. But the idea that it's even being talked about is great. There's never been a time in my life that anyone said, oh, let's get rid of the income tax. So the fact that that's being introduced, I think, is amazing. If the American government can't find a way to rein in spending, to cut entitlements, to shrink the defense budget, et cetera, rearranging the taxes isn't going to solve the problem.
I think if there is a way, I mean, having people like Elon in your administration, that's probably the best chance you're going to have to even make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, having him discuss ending tax on overtime, tax on tips, I like that. That's a great start. So I'm all in for those.
And this is also, for better or worse, part of the sort of political fracturing of America, where we're now on these permanent tribes. Like the Democrats do all this stuff for their base. So if you vote, and Kamala Harris does it so explicitly, it's like illegal, right? She's like, I'm gonna give money just to black people, right? It's like, it's so blatant. But if the other side is doing that, you do have to kind of do it. And so the cleverness of that, where I think it's very smart on Trump's part, is Trump picked policies that people who are already likely to vote Republican support. It's mostly Republican voters who are working overtime. Right, a bunch of the leftist professional class is all salaried. So this is a way of giving a handout to his team. Right. So no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. These are policies that are designed to differentially benefit people who are likely to vote Republican in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it also galvanizes the Libertarian base. People are like, yeah, I want less taxes. I don't want to pay more. Why should we be paying more? The national debt is unpayable. And it's something that, of course, is just not feasible. Now, I don't like tariffs as well. I don't like any kind of taxes. But, it's a kind of crazy idea. He's kind of throwing it out there. He's backing up this plan. I really do think there's going to be some very serious kind of economic issues that are going to kind of come to a head under Donald Trump presidency. Because if you're controlling the global financial markets and the big banks and you're part of the Federal Reserve and you control the interest rates, I think this is the time where a lot of the banksters are like, let's just dump it all. Let's just really put it on Donald Trump's lap. And it looks like Elon Musk agrees with that, as there's a very interesting news article here from MediasNews.com that reads, Trump ally Elon Musk warns of necessary economic collapse if Trump is elected. Musk says everyday Americans must embrace the pain if Trump gets back in the Oval Office. I do foresee this happening, and I think this is why Donald Trump is kind of throwing out these wild ideas of getting rid of the federal income tax, why he's talking about potentially using Bitcoin as a reserve currency, why he's talking about so many different kind of radical alternatives, because you're going to need a radical thinker to deal with these extraordinary way larger financial pressures that I think they're going to tweak and make more severe under his presidency. How will that play out is the larger question here, as Elon Musk is already warning people, hey, there's going to be a big storm that's going to be coming here. How will you deal with it? Well, at least we have someone that looks at as a solution that is cutting taxes and using alternatives to, of course, the U.S. dollar that I think are worth exploring now more than ever.
Well, I think in this post, if it's the one I'm thinking of, here they actually talk about cutting entitlements and cutting spending, because you can't, America is already spending more than it brings in revenue. You can't cut taxes without actually cutting spending. And so if we can get rid of 50% of the bureaucrats or 20% of the bureaucrats and do to the American regulatory regime what Musk did to Twitter and bring down costs and bring down spending, then we can actually cut taxes and America can be on a better trajectory. But cutting taxes alone, I'm not saying I'm against it, but cutting taxes alone won't solve the problem. It will only increase the amount of borrowing that the country does. And I think if you look at expenses of the American government, I think it's something like 50 to 60%. If you add up Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and defense spending, that's like 50 to 60% of the budget. So and if you look at how much of the federal government is spending of your money, so 15%, 20% of all income across America is going to these four things. And so you have to find ways to shrink those. Ultimately, you have to find ways to shrink those.
Yeah. How will it kind of play out here? I mean, that's going to be the interesting kind of situation that I think all of us will need to look at and, of course, prepare for. As this is the tweet that Elon Musk responded to by saying, sounds about right, from a Fisher King 64 that said, quote, if Trump succeeds in forcing through mass deportations, combined with Elon hacking away at the government, firing people, and reducing the deficit, there will be an initial severe overreaction in the economy. This economy, propped up with debt, generating asset bubbles, and artificially suppressing wages as a result of illegal immigration, markets will tumble. But when the storm passes and everyone realizes we are on sounder footing, there would be a rapid recovery to a healthier, sustainable economy. History could be made in the coming 2 years. I agree with that kind of larger sentiment with how it would kind of play out here. And I would also be very careful with other dastardly kind of powers behind the scenes that would try to exacerbate this kind of initial overreaction, this initial kind of pain that will be brought on to the American taxpayer. Now, Donald Trump doesn't have the best record when it comes to balancing the budgets, but he was also dealing with a crazy situation in 2021 as well. So how will he perform this time around if he gets elected? That's going to be something that's going to be very kind of fascinating. What are your guys' concerns with everything kind of moving forward in the direction that it's moving forward in?
Well, I will admit, despite being excited about a Trump presidency, I am a little bit pessimistic about this vision actually happening. And the reason is it's just fundamentally unpopular. People want a free lunch. People don't understand the economics of the country. And so the idea of, tightening the belt, reining in entitlements, reining in all of these spending programs, which are effectively handouts, it's going to be very unpopular. And I think Trump is someone who wants to be popular. I think he wants to be liked. I think he's actually not that ideological. I think even the fact that he is a Republican and on the right and doing all this stuff, it was just a path to power for him as much as anything. Like, he could have been a Democrat if the things had broken way differently. Not entirely true there, but he, what's necessary to do, I think, will be very unpopular. So to hope that it happens, you have to hope both the coalition of the people around him sort of convince him that this is about a future legacy, that this is about being a president who reshaped America, who saved America from failing. And short term, you might be unpopular, but long term, you'll go down as one of the best presidents in history if you're able to do this. And that's what you would have. That's the hope case, the hopium case maybe, is that Trump can believe that he will one day be perceived as one of the greatest American presidents in history if he's able to do these things that will make him unpopular in the short term.
Yeah, I think if anything, he's getting a tough skin. I think because he has an ego. He wants to be liked, But I think after dealing with almost 8+ years of some of the worst abuse, some of the worst lies, some of the most hyperbolic, most insane people going after him, I think potentially he reached kind of a breaking point where it's like, whatever, I don't care. I don't even want to be liked by these people. I want to be liked by my constituents. So you do see him, and I think this is kind of representative of him moving away from doing larger kind of exclusives with the corporate media and now doing it with podcasters. And I think previously before, and I mentioned this when he was president of the United States, I mentioned he really wants to be accepted by CNN and the New York Times and all these kind of liberal elites that he was in the inner circles of. He wants their praise. He wants their consideration. And you could see it with his media policies. You could see it with the way that he's trying to, of course, court them. But I think he's realizing, hey, this news media, they're not my friends, and they never will be. The people who will be are the people that I could actually serve, I could actually represent, and actually make a reasonable difference for. And even when I do that, they'll still call me one of the worst people in history. So I think that larger change has happened throughout this campaign cycle, especially when it got very real for Donald Trump, when those charges started to set in, when he got that photo of him in prison started to get out there to the general public. And over a certain period of time, you could only take so much abuse until you just stop giving a damn about what the uber elite leftists think about him. So I think this is going to be a very unique kind of presidency, because you do see a change in Donald Trump, but older people don't usually change. But how will that play out when he's actually in that position in power? That's going to be fascinating. As of course, when he first went in there in 2016, automatically he started surrounding himself with some of the most evilest, most nastiest, disgusting people. And automatically, as soon as he did, I'm like, alarm bell, warning, guys, this is not going to be good for you. These guys are bad. Why is he putting them into positions of power to rule over you? This is not good. We all need to, call this out immediately. And I was attacked.
He didn't have the experience.
Yeah. I mean, yes, of course. I'm just mentioning what happened what happened to me, because I saw it before anyone else did. I saw him cozying up to Henry Kissinger. I saw him with Gina Haspel, with all these other kind of Pompeos and Boltons, and I was automatically saying, no, bad decision. All the Trump supporters viciously attacked me, saying I'm a leftist, I'm a liberal, I'm deranged, I'm crazy, I got Trump derangement syndrome. Now Donald Trump is admitting literally what I've been warning people about, and kind of saying quietly, yeah, Luke, you were pretty much right about all of those criticisms because I was wrong, as on Joe Rogan. He even admitted Sheldon Eldenson paid him to put John Bolton in there, and he was one of the worst people that he ever had in his office. Something that, of course, we have heavily criticized, but everyone was telling us, trust the plan, Luke. No, it's all a part of a deeper kind of thing that you don't understand. Well, we understood it, and looking back at the record 8 years ago, we understood it a lot better than I think anyone else did in independent media, and we were willing to lose our audience in order to speak the truth to you, and we're going to do the same no matter who gets elected as president of the United States, even though I am voting for Donald Trump. That's my personal take on it.
I had hope we got to have hope and faith. You brought up his experience. I think we all kind of agreed with what you're saying, Luke. I didn't like the people he's been around. I liked Bannon and Flynn. He fired them, right? But I think if you're an entertainer and your background is not in politics, you don't know how things are run. I gotta have faith and say that I think now the way that I've heard him speak and the people he's surrounding himself now, I think there is a different outlook moving forward. I think he's learned his lesson.
Yeah, I think so too. With the way that he speaks, with the people that he has surrounded himself with, absolutely. I'm just bringing up the larger notion of what happened 8 years ago, which I think is worth revisiting, because I think there's still a small possibility that history could repeat, but I think it won't if we are vocal enough. If the general public, the consensus says enough is enough of this, of these swamp monsters, we need more Viveks, we need more Tulsis, we need more RFKs, we need more Elons, we need more people
Kaufmans.
That are disruptors and Kaufmans out there and libertarians and
I would fire bureaucrats for free. I'm just putting that out. I don't even need a salary. Okay, I'll just show up and do it.
Yeah, that's what I said
no
too.
compensation necessary.
We need more Cash Patels
Yeah.
out there. That, of course, we need more Angelas, McCurls out there that are doing incredible work. And it's up to you to kind of support them and to back them. Because if it wasn't for you guys backing and supporting these individuals and this larger kind of cultural war that we are all a part of, we wouldn't be here. And we truly are very appreciative of all of your audience members and all the people who participate in the conversations, all the people who sign up to lookunfiltered.com, and, of course, are active and engaged and give us the power to be here for you as individuals. Jeremy, what else is going on in your life? What else is going on in the Free State Project? Because it's always a project filled with a lot of controversy, a lot of craziness. But New Hampshire in general, it's a state that I lived in. I loved living in myself. If I had a family, I would probably still be living there. What else is going on with you and the Free State of New Hampshire?
Family's definitely one of the best reasons to be there. I have 4 kids, and there's no place like New Hampshire.
The Homeschooling Pod Network,
Yeah.
absolutely incredible network where, all the heavy lifting of homeschooling your children is done by the network, by the community there, which is so powerful. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tomorrow, my son will go to a farm, and he'll shovel chicken crap. And then he'll do some firearms practice, and he'll do math at my house later.
And as soon as I have children, I'm taking them directly to Jay Noon's man camp in New Hampshire. And I'm like, listen, kids, fend for yourselves. You're on the farm here with Jay Noon, and he's going to teach you everything you need to know about living off the grid and fully on your own. No shoes, too. Shoes are not allowed. You're going to be barefoot little freedom children that are going to learn how to live off the land.
Yeah, but New Hampshire is going great. I think, look, when there's things at stake, when there's a lot going on, you end up with drama. There's no drama when your movement is dying. If your movement is healthy, there's always going to be some drama. I'm working on something new called Aristillus. So it's ARISTILLUS.net. I'm not going to explain it all here because I don't even know exactly what it is yet. But if you're interested in a sort of a movement to explore how to fix the holes of liberalism, classical liberalism, you're sort of seeing that, hey, things aren't going in a good direction generally, but there's still this ethos of people who care about the way that I talked about things today. You can throw your email address in on that website, and I'll keep you up to date as I work on it.
So you're working on a project, but you don't know what you're working on.
Look, I'm a very intuitive entrepreneur, and I know that there's something that needs to be built here. I don't know exactly what it is. I could talk a little bit more about it. It is going to be a private club, but it is something. It's not going to be exactly a traditional club either. So it's going to be. We're going to be very. I think what's very important is sort of how you select for people. This has one of my big political changes is that people matter as much or more than the laws or the rules. And the founders thought that they could craft the most beautiful constitution and that would perpetuate itself. And I think that that's kind of proved to be not true. And if you get the wrong people interpreting the words, you get very bad outcomes. And so we need to think more about how we select for people. And this project is kind of exploring that idea.
Huh, interesting.
It's just like Hereticon. It's private.
It is.
I want to ask you so many questions about Hereticon right now.
You're welcome to.
Is it political? Is it medical? Is it like personal well-being? Is it entrepreneurship? What's going on? Or is it like a secret society?
So Peter Thiel is a libertarian, and he still holds on to libertarian ideas. But I think Peter also very much believes in human excellence and achievement, and he believes that we get there by exploring all kinds of things and pushing limits. So it's not political. It's certainly not 100% Trump voters or anything like that. But it's people doing all kinds of interesting and kind of crazy kinds of things. So there's like people editing their own genes. People who are I saw a presentation yesterday on like how you could create a city out of an iceberg. There's talks about religion, biology, sort of cutting edge things, but it's generally someone working on something that a lot of people wouldn't like. And so bringing those people together, creating a space for them to exchange ideas.
What's one of the ideas that you think is the least liked? Can you get into that?
I think that a lot of these people are comfortable with the idea of biology, playing a role. There's people there who have some sort of out there ideas about AI and where that will go, as well as people who are doing. There's people who are, now they're genetically, testing their children and trying to select for children with certain attributes and this kind of thing, which is I know that's an unpopular idea, but
people do that already.
Yeah.
A lot of rich people
do that with dogs all the time.
Yeah, people do that with dogs. People do that with their own children right now. Just literally taking the sperm and the egg and making multiple babies and then genetically kind of testing it and then seeing, this one's going to be 6 foot. This one's going to have blonde hair. This one's going to have autism. This one's not going to have autism. Let's pick out the best baby and then re-inject it into, either the mother or in some instances, a poor Ukrainian farm girl that gets human trafficked in Ukraine. So there's also, situations like that unfold. I'm not saying that's unfolding exactly with what you guys are describing, but there are larger kind of technocratic, technological kind of advancements that are kind of, questionable, and some people are asking if you should ever kind of do them because it does give people godlike power and authority. And I think that's a larger kind of conundrum that a lot of people morally are facing as well when it comes to the advancements that we're seeing in science and medicine today.
Yeah, and look, I wouldn't endorse every idea I've heard at the conference, but I'm a very open-minded person. That's why I'm attracted to free speech, competition of ideas, and I like the idea of smart people trying things. And so to me, the real test is I like it when I like craziness, even craziness that I think is ill-advised, so long as the skin in the game is yours. If you're bearing, like, the free state movement is a kind of crazy idea, but we're the people who are trying to do it, like, we're bearing the risk, participating in it. And so when something has that kind of dynamic, I think it's very healthy. Like, I love the guy who cured ulcers by, he couldn't get approval, so he just ate this bacteria himself.
Yeah.
And he found that he could cure ulcers. And so this kind of approach to allowing things to be built. It's a Code of Hammurabi 229 was if this was how they handled. They didn't have building codes, but if you built a building poorly and it collapsed, they killed you. And I wouldn't necessarily, maybe we don't need to go that far, but like that directionally, like that's the right way. We don't need to write all of these rules down. We just need to align, skin in the game with people doing things.
Yeah, I believe individuals like Brian Johnson are absolute revolutionaries that will obliterate huge portions of the medical industrial complex and big pharma as well with the larger kind of experimentation he's doing on himself. And, some people say he looks like a vampire. Some people say it's creepy that he takes the blood of his younger child and injects it into his veins. He also gives his blood to his father. So and then that has shown to have actually positive medical markers for individuals that take, younger blood. Now, I think as long as it's done consensually, as long as there's no kind of force or coercion here, there's an argument to make here, but it still does kind of make you wonder what the future will look like, especially with powerful people gaining so much power and poorer people just being more downtrodden than ever and potentially being used as batteries for the larger matrix machine in the future.
Well,
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. And the don't die people some of the don't die people are there. I think that, my hope would be that, similar to other new technologies, that if we do ultimately discover that some of this stuff works, that there will be ways of doing it that, ultimately are, scalable, and so it might be expensive and only for wealthy people in the beginning, but over time it becomes something that is accessible to, basically everyone.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
But, right now with what we're seeing in the medical industrial complex, sadly, a lot of the, rich people have all the solutions, have all the answers, have all the kind of preventative care, and everyone else is kind of denied that, or they can't afford it, which, it does kind of lead towards this kind of weird situation that I think should be kind of talked about in a more serious fashion than it actually is right now. But I'm more for helping humanity, helping individuals, and if one individual is doing things that is a major disruption that actually helps them, I think that information needs to be democratized. I think that information needs to be released to the general public in order to be actually codified and not weaponized against the general public. Sadly, a lot of people, when they gain a lot of power, they don't like to share it. And the power to heal people, to help people, to help them survive particular things, usually isn't in the kind of larger calculations of individuals like Bill Gates that don't care about humanity. Now, do these other individuals care about humanity? I hope they do. And I think the way that Brian Johnson is doing it in a very kind of transparent, open, and honest way, describing everything that he's going through on social media is the way kind of forward. The question also goes, to Elon. Elon's making a lot of advancements, especially when it comes to brain chips, especially when it comes to larger kind of, robots and automatic taxis that play into this larger UN 2030 vision. But, how this will play out in the future, I think should always be a cautionary tale of how we move forward with it, as I think there's also a lot of traps laid out in front of us with these advancements that we should be careful of to make sure not to fall for. But that's just my 2 cents on this particular matter. But yeah, fascinating stuff to kind of delve into and get into. Was there any kind of piece of information that you garnered that you are utilizing, especially when it comes to like your own health and wellness, from a lot of these kind of individuals?
I'm perhaps being convinced that some of this stuff is real. I'm skeptical. I'm very open minded, but I'm naturally very skeptical, and so I attempt to eat well and exercise. I noticed that I was getting fat a couple of years ago, and I stopped doing that. I'm back on a good exercise and eating healthy regime.
You look great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm still, honestly, I'm still kind of skeptical, but maybe I'm slowly, getting made into being less skeptical. I mean, I find it, as I said, I really like ideas, and I like the idea of there being, part of what excites me the most is like having spaces, because people have all these ideas and a lot of times they can't even do them. There's too many regulatory legal challenges or whatever. And so I'm really excited about there being spaces where, these kinds of things can happen again.
Yeah.
And we can discover what works and what doesn't.
I agree. The regulations are ridiculous, and they do more harm than they do good. And sadly, they are used as a ploy to help out the people who are more friends with a lot of people in government, rather than the people that they're actually supposed to serve. But yeah, that's why, health is something that we talk about extensively here. That's why we started wearechange.shop. That's why we got products like takecalm.com, a great product that I personally use. I personally recommended this to my mom, and I gave it to my mom, and my mom really likes it. I really like it too. It's something that I personally take. Takecalm.com is the website, and it's our Klaus Schwab represented larger tincture that really does help me with calming down, sleeping, helps you with anxiety, and we just sold out recently. We just restocked, and it's truly a great product. I give it to a lot of people. I give it to a lot of the people that are in my life that are dealing with a lot of issues. This is the year that a lot of people are dealing with a lot of issues, and that's why we started our own kind of health line on wearechange.shop. Takecalm.com is the website to get Take Calm, and it's really something that I personally enjoy. I think you will too. Check it out, takecalm.com. We also got some super chats here that we should read off really quickly. One from Switzerland Land Play IT, who says, I wonder if Sophia is watching. I think she is. Best of luck, Switzerland Play IT. And another one from Stu Bird that says, defund the NGOs that are importing illegal migrants. Yes, it's kind of crazy that our tax dollars are financing the larger replacement of our local population. Not a good strategy, especially with the low birth rates, especially with just all the insanity happening in this country. Jeremy, this was kind of a last minute. We did a plan on going. We don't usually go live at 1 p.m. We might start doing this just more routinely, because I think it might be better than just doing a standalone video, and then we could take segments from this video and then upload them later on throughout the week. But we never really do this. You were in town. You hit me up. We had a guest cancel yesterday. You would have been perfect yesterday, but it didn't work out. It's totally fine, but you're someone who's been an important part of the kind of liberty movement, so we wanted to give you your time to, of course, be here and speak to our audience. Thank you so much for coming in here. Anything else you like to say, and where can people find out more information about you?
So if you want to see more from me, I use X the most, so you can find me at x.com/Jeremy Kaufman. In my community, it is literally a service to help people discover New Hampshire and learn more about it. So you're helping me when you ask questions about New Hampshire. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I help people plan trips all the time, answer questions, make connections, get people connected to the Free State Network. If you're not a conspiracy practitioner, you will get conspiracy theorized. Okay, so it's important to be part of an active cabal and an active conspiracy. Otherwise you're on the outside. And so we've got one in New Hampshire. So I definitely encourage people to come check that out. Come to PorkFest, something like that. It was really fun to be on. It's always fun to talk to you. And so thanks a lot for setting this up.
Yeah, PorkFest, super fun. Everyone's like, do they have pork? No. Well, they do. They have a whole bunch of food stands, and it's really a great time. I really enjoy it. I make sure that every year I attend. And it's really just a very kind of homey, very kind of relaxed, very kind of awesome conference, not conference, /camp out, /bonfire, just cool people that you're able to talk to and interact with in kind of an aggregist free marketplace, which is fun to experience in its fullest kind of potential. So definitely go check out the Free State Project, but that's in June. But even before that, visiting New Hampshire is really cool. They have a lot of really amazing nature hikes. That's what I loved about living there. And just being able to walk around the White Mountains, being able to, of course, explore this kind of huge wilderness has been just absolutely incredible, and some of the best moments in my life. Atlas absolutely loved the nature hikes, and she just kind of goes off, and truly some of the most beautiful landscapes you will ever see in your life in New Hampshire. And then while you're there, hit up Jeremy. And hit up, all the individuals there that are doing some really awesome meetups, some really great. What are they? Marketplaces? Is that what they call them? What do you guys call them?
There are these market days. There are these like agorist meetups. There's so much going on that you really can come any time of year. And there's also a man named Dennis Pratt Free on X. He literally posts every week of the year a vacation plan. So there maybe are better times to come, but you can come literally any time of year and have a full calendar of things to do and check out in New Hampshire.
Absolutely beautiful state. Robbie Mann, thank you so much for joining us.
Just want to say that Jeremy's pineal gland is very, it's not calcified at all. You can feel his courage when he comes in the room. He's a very powerful guy. I wish everyone in humanity was like him. I think we'd have world peace. I think we'd have a lot of good things going on. It's been a real pleasure, man. I appreciate you standing up for, your rights, and watching that video inspired me. I think a lot of people, are scared and have fear, and I think it's inspirational to see people doing what you do. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at The Robbie Man, and I'm on Instagram at Robbie Man. It's The Robbie Man Show. I love you all, and go change your liberal friends. Let's get them to make America healthy again. Let's try to convince them to get out of the programming. Let's win this election, man. Yep. I think it's very important.
And we return 6 p.m. Eastern here on these channels with Colby Covington. So he will be joining us here in studio in about 3 hours from now. So tune in for that. 2 live streams. It's the election. Everyone's going crazy. Everyone's working their butts off. So are we. We return soon here on thebestpoliticalshow.com. Thank you again so much for watching.
Oh, and then can we get on the guest list for Hereticon?